Hey folks, welcome back. It's GM Mayhem. How are you guys doing today? Today we have a very special interview with a very special person, the one and only Brown Wizard Winston. We'll be asking him some questions today and seeing how he answers. All right, Winston, how you doing today?
Doing just fine. How about you?
I'm doing better and hope this works better than it did last time.
Yeah.
Uh, this is our second attempt at this interview, and we'll just get it kicked off. So, Winston, tell me how did you get into RPGs in general?
Been in them since I was a teenager. I'd played D&D before then when I was younger, but that was a one-off. I played with my dad and brothers. But I really got into it around high school when I was a teenager. Third edition Dungeons and Dragons had just come out, and then 3.5 is when I really picked up into it, playing that and a bunch of friends in high school, and that's how I got into it and got started. As about a couple decades ago, so and been playing on and off since then. Bunch of different systems and all kinds of stuff.
Now, what made you get behind the screen and become a dungeon master?
I like to write, and I still do. So just wanting to present ideas to my buddies and stuff, uh, as well as just reading the rules to figure out what they were because we were kids. We just we'd argue back and forth about the rules and stuff. So I ended up diving into those and picking that up, and just, well, I know the rules, might as well just run the games, right?
Yeah. Okay. Which games have you run, or which systems have you run?
3.5 Dungeons and Dragons, uh Pathfinder 1, first edition. I have run Call of Cthulhu. I have run Mothership, which is a newer one, and then a lot of fifth edition. Maybe some one-offs here and there for various things, but that's largely what I've stuck with.
And of the systems you've run, which one so far is your favorite?
Probably 5e, honestly. Before 5e, probably Pathfinder. But I've spent a lot more time in 5e, and I just know it like the back of my hand, so it's just really familiar, and I enjoy it.
Okay, makes sense. So do you run pre-published adventures, or do you like to write your own?
Largely, I like to write my own, but I have run pre-published adventures. But usually those are good for jump starting a game, and then once you've gone off rails on those, it's just wherever that takes you.
Yeah, players will definitely take you off the rails as quickly as they possibly can.
Hate them. They hate them.
Yeah. Uh, so walk me through your process for preparing for a session.
Well, whether I'm running a module or going off my own notes, it's reading those. It helps when I write my own because I'm more familiar with the content contained within anyway. So that goes a lot smoother. So a lot of it's just, seeing where things are, what NPCs are there, and then trying to figure out in my head how they're going to interact with the party and what sort of, behaviors they present, just to, whatever I can to facilitate that game. Get, the fewer stoppages the better.
Yeah. So how do you balance preparation versus improv?
Well, there's only so much you can prep, and if you over prep in really most directions, the players will take it completely different way.
Yeah.
So doing the broad strokes are better. So knowing where your sites are, where the players could go, versus the NPCs you present, and again their behaviors. If you have behaviors, if you learn behaviors rather than scripted language, that's gonna put you on a better path than, because if they might steer the conversation with an NPC in a direction that you don't have a script for. So you should
Right.
just try and figure out how this NPC behaves and just interact improv. It's just back and forth. They say something, how's the NPC interact with that?
Okay. Now, what are some of your favorite resources, tools, apps that you like to use when you're running a game or when you're planning a game?
Definitely Donjon, uh, website out there. You can just Google it and find it. A lot of people, I assume, use it because it's so handy. There's a lot of stuff on there. I don't use a lot of it as much anymore, but I have used the item tables that you can generate. Name generator on there is really good. Bunch of different stuff, but it has an initiative tracker, which is really handy. And it essentially it's a table that you can input data like the AC stuff like that, which I don't use, but you can put their initiatives in and then sort it, and then you can actually time their turns as well. So you can, kind of, hey, you took 5 minutes on your turn. That was a little bit long. Let's try and cut that.
So you don't use the D&D Beyond at all?
I don't. No, never used it. I don't know much about it, honestly.
I use it. I won't endorse it because Wizards, but
Fair,
I have too much money sunk into it not to use it.
fair.
Um, so how do you get the inspiration for your games? They come from books, movies, other games.
It's a lot of different stuff. A lot of the time is just music, sitting and listening to music, and then just like if I'm doing stuff like working out or something and I'm not really utilizing my brain will just start it'll pick stuff up and start running with something like, hey, that's a cool idea, and then start expanding on that idea into something that's broadly different, or even a game or a movie. Something will kick a thought process off, some little aspect, and it's like ships, pirates, underwater. Yeah, all that sounds cool. Let's run with that and broaden that up and stuff.
How do you build interesting NPCs for your players to interact with?
I think just making them seem like real people, right? Giving the NPCs their own desires, their own goals, and then base that on how they interact. Maybe, expressions, emotions that the players can pick up on, because they'll pick up on that and they'll interact with that as well. And then if you have NPCs in like a town or something, whatever they interact with, if you've got maybe broader plot points going on, rumors and stuff like that, that might play back into the NPCs as well if they're brought up multiple times. Although with most players, if you just have a silly name, they'll just attach themselves to that person.
Yeah. Speaking of players, how do you deal with problem personalities at your table?
If it's problem personalities, it's usually just they don't last long. Ask them to leave because they just don't fit the table. If it's an issue, then handle it outside the game. No sense bringing up drama at the table. But if it's a personality thing, it's unlikely to change. So just after a game, just don't invite them back.
Fair enough. Now, do you have any tricks for getting shy or quiet players to engage?
I like going around and asking my players what their actions are. So, given us, present a room, and then or present a room scenario, something like that, and instead of just opening the floor, because the players who do talk will override them, other players, because they have an idea. I instead go around and ask individual players what they do and take actions from individual players. And then once I've gone around the table once, I'll go around again to resolve their actions that they chose to do. They can choose to pass, but I feel it gives them the space to try and do something.
Yeah. Now, how do you balance spotlight time between different players?
That's a little trickier.
Yeah.
Because some players will take it, and then other players will just kind of do the minimum amount what they want to do. It sort of like internal timing. So if it feels like it's gone on too long, it almost definitely has gone on too long. One-on-one time with a player for their action. So if you can get some internal timing down, like a minute or two, and then move it along, it's just trying to find a good stopping spot in their essentially on their turn, and then passing it on to the next person.
Sorry about that. I had to cough, so I cut the mic.
Oh, good.
So what's your philosophy on fudging dice rolls?
Fudging dice, I don't do it. However, Big, however, I like to make custom monsters for my games, and sometimes they're a bit too beefy for the party to handle. So I will not necessarily fudge the dice, but if the first hit lands and it's a big one, I will tone down the damage going forward because I miscalculated that. So I usually tweak stats, but I won't necessarily fudge the dice directly. Oh, this was a crit, so it's not. No, crits land. I'll land crits against players as they can land crits against the monsters too.
Now, how do you handle crits, failures, and successes?
Failures and successes. With 5e, it's just like the combat skills can't crit either way,
Right.
Hit or miss. So just combat. Now with the critical hits, it's base damage, maximum base damage. So if it does, 1d8 plus whatever, it's the 1d8, the 8 plus the bonus, and then you roll for extra damage. So you'll roll an extra 1d8 on top of that. And that goes for monsters and players. Both benefit from that. Now for the crit misses, I do a little more interesting stuff. So if they crit miss, I'll have the players pick high or low. I'll just tell them high or low, and they're usually confused and they start panicking. Just high or low, and then I roll a dice. If it's what they guess, then it's in their favor. So whether they lose the rest of their attack or movement, depending on whatever comes narratively from that, they slip, they leave an opening, they get an attack of opportunity, something like that. But it's usually just a high or low roll to see, if it plays out in their favor. It's just dumb luck, essentially.
I use a random table. I'm very fond of random tables.
Oh, yeah.
The one I use has different categories for melee attacks, ranged attacks, spell attacks.
That sounds awesome, actually.
After the interview, I'll see if I can't figure out which table it is that I use. I don't have it on these computers, but I'll send you a link or send it to you.
Oh, nice. That'd be cool. I'd be interested in trying that out.
So how do you adjust when players go off script or just derail what you had planned?
Historically, I haven't handled that well, especially high school stuff like that, because it's really hard to improv when you're starting to get into that space. And it's like you start panicking, so you just clamp down. But now it's just whatever you want to do. Like if they go off rails, then they do that. If they waste time, then they do that. Sort of, try and get other players to hold them accountable for the time. So if, a player just wants to go to the tavern and drink, well, that's your guys' time. If that's how you want to spend it, let's do it.
Yeah, I have a mixed group, male, female. And I've got one guy who absolutely hates shopping sessions.
Understandable.
But everybody else loves it. They like to go buy things, spend all that gold they picked up.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some of the most memorable moments you've had running games?
That I've had running games. Let's see.
Put you on the spot here.
Oh yeah, you did. Most memorable spots. It's all largely player shenanigans. It's whatever they decided to do. Which running Call of Cthulhu, the introductory scenario that you can find for free called The Haunting, gives you a wide variety of, this is Call of Cthulhu, so it runs your players through all the different interactions and mystery and puzzle solving that they can come across while playing the system. So once you get to the end of that, you're at a haunted house. All the players are at a haunted house, so you can just do all kinds of hauntings to them. So having the radio play music, and then they go over there and unplug the radio, and then the radio turns back on, and watching them kind of panic and freak out, like, what's going on? just having noises and stuff. You can really tell how immersed they become in what's happening based on their actual reactions and how spooked they feel. And I think that's that's what you aim for in all the tabletop, is just that level of immersion where they're just kind of sucked into it and they're treating it like it's real.
So how do you handle character death at your table?
I haven't had to personally.
Well, that's always nice.
Just typically play 5e, and I've played 5e as presented, which is it's hard to die in 5e with your death saving throws and all that. However, I've got some new rules I want to incorporate that are presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide for a little bit more of a lethal setup. So that'll be interesting. And then upcoming, I'll be running a first edition game as well, and that's known to be
Definitely
fairly
more.
lethal. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think I think players knowing that going in will be able to handle it pretty well, as long as they know that the options on the table. In the 5e games, if one of my characters were to die, one of my players' characters were to die, they'd probably bummed out at the best. They get kind of attached.
Now I run a 5e game myself, but at least two of my players have played older editions, first and second, I guess third. And they already have multiple backups ready to roll.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, do you have a session 0 where you talk about what to expect?
Yeah, definitely.
So when they sit down at my table, the first thing I tell them is character death is definitely a possibility.
I got a cat, sorry.
Kitty cat. So since you've never had a character death, you've obviously never had a TPK.
I have not. I mean, I wouldn't hold back on it if it's if that's how it plays out, that's how it plays out. So yeah. I just I don't think most of my players have really dealt with that. So
yeah, TPKs are difficult sometimes.
Well, yeah, how do you do that, since it's essentially just a big stoppage?
Well, yeah, it can be a campaign ender.
You just start fresh, or do you use the same world with? Now I'm interviewing you.
The son of moving right along. I'm not in the hot seat today. So, what considerations go into pacing your sessions and campaigns?
With 5e, it's typically been I do the milestone leveling, and that kind of sets the pacing. And it's usually set up to be sort of like a sub adventure per session, and then they'll usually level once every either session, typically early on, or 2 sessions later on. Just whatever divide it into chapters and do that. Going forward with new games, though, I'll be using like actual XP and then implementing gold for XP in that too. And I think it's just whatever is good stopping point for wherever they land, really.
Okay. I like to use milestone myself. Now, when you level your PCs, do you do it in the wild, or do you make them go back to town, or how do you handle it?
I have handled it just on the spot. They level, which is usually at the end of the session. So whenever the end of the session is, like, we'll level, but wherever they are, just level them. But I intend to do like they have to go to a safe spot. Wherever they're holed up, usually, it would be like a town or a village or something, and then they'll have to spend some money on training, which is also outlined in the DMG as well. I just like the idea of it where, they don't have that sort of, it's essentially a safety net. You level up in the wild and you get access to new powers, essentially. And it's, well, now they have a reason to go back to town. They may have to stop where they're adventuring and then, stuff may happen in the dungeon or the area where they're adventuring while they're gone. So they have to make a choice whether to continue and kind of clear out where they are, or head back and recover and level up.
Makes sense. I require them to be in town, but motorcycle being started. Hope you don't.
I don't hear that at all.
Excellent. The way it's 100 gold per level.
Nice.
Per player or per character, and 1 week per level training. So going from 5th to 6th level, it's 5 weeks.
That makes sense.
600 gold per character. Yeah. It's a little bit of a gold sink because I tend to be a little generous with the treasures.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I have to tax them as much as I can. They can keep nothing.
No, that makes sense. That's a good idea too.
So how do you set the mood to keep your players immersed during a session? Soundboards, music, lighting. You burn candles and
mostly music, ambient music in the background. I've got some fun like dark jazz that I'll play when we're doing Call of Cthulhu, and then some just sort of like ambient adventure music for D&D. And then when we do combat music, I'll bust out the Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 combat music for that. So it's nostalgic, and it's puts everyone in the mood for combat.
I like using the Skyrim soundtrack myself.
Nice. Yeah, that's good too. Very
of course,
good.
I don't record my games, so I can do that without getting copyright.
Right.
So do you tailor your GMing styles to different groups, or do you only have one group? I'm not sure.
I've run multiple groups before. I usually try and keep it down to one, just as a management thing. I try to tailor it. Like my current group that I'm running, I have been tailoring because it's family and stuff, and like most of them haven't ever even played. So I thought it was fun to just kind of like whatever their characters were, just kind of give them some special stuff that, they enjoy. It's fun. My nephew's real into Dragon Ball. And he's playing a monk, so I'll give him some Dragon Ball related stuff. And it gets him excited, and he stays invested in the game because of that too. Because he's like 11, so his attention span just kind of wavers.
I am so sorry. For some reason, my face is just wanting to be. I'm not bored. I'm not
sleepy face.
I guess, but everything either itches or something.
You hear my cat? He's just sitting here purring.
Nope.
Being loud.
Well, he's happy. He's safe.
Yeah, he is.
So do you have a specific style or philosophy? And if you do, how would you describe it?
As far as what?
Your GM style.
That's evolving as I go. Since I've been on Twitter and been writing modules, I've picked up a lot of different play styles that have intrigued me, to the point now where I'm running first edition. So I'm leaning definitely more towards a more grounded, more lethal style of gameplay, because I think that changes the player's attitude and mindset to the adventure. And then stuff that leans more towards like the actual adventure, whereas before I've run like a plot or a point crawl type thing where you take the players from this town to this site to this, there might be an encounter or something in between, versus the hex crawl approach where it's dump the players, throw some rumors in there, let them go, let them choose what they want to do, and have that going.
Okay. And how do you encourage role play amongst their players?
I think that just goes hand in hand with trying to build, like, not trying to build, but like doing those things that have that sort of immersive feel. Some players are just going to gravitate more towards that, towards the improv, towards the interacting. So as long as long as you can, and as best as you can, maintain your game world, your game characters, your NPCs. If you're treating it seriously, the players should also treat it seriously. Like if you're engaging them on that level, but as soon as you drop it, like they're gonna treat that as, an opportunity to break character and stuff like that, which is fine. The jokes are fine, laughing around. That's why you're getting together, is having fun and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want them to treat it seriously, then you have to treat it seriously.
So with that in mind, do you use props or handouts or other tangible things?
For Call of Cthulhu, I do. The system it feels like it lends itself to doing that, because you've got players rifling through, say, like police reports and archives and stuff. So even just having a piece of paper with typewriter type text on it and handing them to it, like they think it's real cool, they can touch it, it's interesting, and that gets them involved into the mystery, and then they have stuff they can refer to later on in the game as well. I haven't really done it in Dungeons and Dragons or any other fantasy, but like I don't. For one, the props are harder. They can be, coins and daggers and stuff like that they could use. Call of Cthulhu, a lot of it's just printed out stuff, like, oh, this photograph and stuff like that I printed out, like, oh. But I don't think it's necessarily anything that helps that. But Call of Cthulhu, it does, they really get into it, having maps and items and papers and symbols to pour over.
I've never played Call of Cthulhu. I've wanted to.
It's fun. It's hyper lethal 1920s. Typically, I've played 1980s, played more more modern scenarios and stuff, and it's fun across the board.
Now, do you use terrain?
Not terrain, but I do like print and paint minis, and we use those for combat and stuff like that. But I have a couple terrain pieces, just never used them. It's just largely it's a storage issue. Like it'd be cool to do, to let have dungeon pieces and build it out, but man, like I don't even know where I'd keep all that. It would be cool to do though.
This is a shameless plug for a YouTuber that I watch that doesn't have any idea who I am, but Black Magic Craft.
Okay.
Jeremy, he's Canadian, but he makes dungeon terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses well, I do it too because of him, but 3-inch pieces of foam core for like insulating walls and houses.
Yeah, that's what I would use if I did it, carving that out and stuff.
For dungeon tiles. So just 15 feet sections.
Yeah.
3 inches. And they stack really well, and they fit in a tote, and you can make an infinite number of dungeon tiles to make an infinite number of shapes for dungeon layouts.
That's
if
awesome.
You have the time.
Yeah, right.
So moving away from props, let's check our time. We're just about out of time. So just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So what's been the most unexpected or surprising thing a player has done in one of your games, and how did you handle it?
Oh goodness, that's a really good question. In one of my games, probably most unexpected, playing 3-5, playing with some friends and my brother, and we played with all the splat books and stuff like that. And one of the characters, I believe, was playing a psionic, and then my brother was playing a half satyr character, is from one of the splat books. And they came across a monster in a semi-swampy area, and they used my brother, the psionic, used my brother, the half satyr, as a missile, because the satyrs had like a headbutt attack. So he used his psionic ability to launch the satyr at the monster they encountered. It's just like, okay, I guess let's send it.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, final question.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to new GMs, DMs coming into the scene?
Read the rules. The more familiar you are with the rules, you should really just be familiar with the rules, but at least know where to find the rules if you can't think of it, what the rule is on the spot. Because that's what runs the game. It's hard to run the game when you don't know the rules. You're just gonna make stuff up, and then the game's gonna effectively fall apart if you're just making stuff up the whole time. Because the players have nothing to go off if you don't know the rules.
Excellent. All right. I lied. I do have one more question. So where can folks find you?
I am largely on Twitter at BrownWizard. You can find me there. I have modules on DriveThruRPG. I have them on Big Geek Emporium, and I have them on Giant Slayer RPGs as well. And then I have a blog that I've been running most recently, and that's also through my Linktree.
Okay. I'll also have links down in the description. So, guys, check out Brown Wizard. Go buy his things because obviously he needs more money because he has a cat that he has to feed.
I have two cats.
Two cats.
Two cats.
Oh no. All right. Winston, it was great to have you on the show, and hopefully we will see you again sometime.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, please like and comment, tell me what you thought. If you want to help me out, consider joining my Patreon using the link in the description. Patrons can enjoy my videos before they are released on YouTube. You can also download articles on ttrpg subjects that I have written, and I'll be posting chapters of my upcoming book, The Game Master's Guide to Crafting Legendary Worlds. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to make sure you never miss out.